was an old factory in a quiet, abandoned village deep in the woods. It was built in the early 20th century and once served as the main source of work for local residents. The plant produced metal products, pipes, rails, and various parts for railways. However, the factory closed in 1985. The reason for this was not only economic difficulties, but also a series of mysterious deaths. The locals always said that there was something wrong at the factory. It was said that the spirit of a certain engineer, who died in 1923 under strange circumstances, settled within its walls. Since then, workers have often heard strange noises and seen strange shadows during night shifts. But the real horrors began later. In 1980, a new boss, Andrey Kovalev, came to work at the plant. He was a man of strict principles and did not believe in superstition. However, a few months after his arrival, the situation at the plant deteriorated sharply. 5 workers died here during the year. All deaths were ruled accidents, but each time the circumstances of their deaths aroused suspicion. The first victim was a young worker named Sergei. He died under the pressure, which suddenly turned on by itself. No one could explain how this could happen, because Sergei was an experienced specialist and always followed safety precautions. Marina, who worked in the archive, was next. She was found strangled at her workplace. The doors and windows of the archive were closed from the inside, and no signs of forced entry or struggle were found. The third victim, Alexei, was an electrician. His body was found next to a transformer booth. The official version is an accident during repair, but Alexei's colleagues claimed that he knew the safety rules perfectly well and never made mistakes. The fourth victim was Andrey Kovalev himself. He was found dead in his office. The official conclusion was a heart attack, but it was whispered in the village that he had been seen talking to someone invisible on the eve of his death. After Kovalev's death, the factory closed and its building remained abandoned. Locals avoided approaching it, fearing what might inhabit it. It was often said in the village that strange sounds could be heard at night at the factory. Metal screeching, knocks, sometimes even screams. Many years have passed, and the factory began to be forgotten. But recently, a group of young, enthusiastic researchers came to the old building. They decided to spend the night at the factory and make a film about its dark history. The guys installed cameras and voice recorders and began to explore the building. At first, everything was calm. They wandered through the empty workshops, recording their impressions. But closer to midnight, the atmosphere changed. One of the researchers, Oleg, heard strange noises in an old archive. He decided to check it out and went there alone. The archive was dark and damp. Oleg noticed a strange movement in the corner of the room. As he got closer, he felt a sharp chill and heard whispers coming from old documents. Suddenly, something invisible pushed him in the back, and he fell. At the last moment, before he lost consciousness, he saw the shadow of a man in work clothes. Meanwhile, the rest of the guys heard Oleg's screams and rushed to help. They found him unconscious on the floor of the archive. After bringing their friend to his senses, they decided to leave the building immediately. But the doors that used to open easily were now locked. Someone or something didn't want to let them out. In a panic,
They tried to get out through the windows, but it did not bring results. The sounds around them grew louder, as if the factory was coming to life. Cameras left in the workshops recorded strange silhouettes and movements. One of the guys, Anton, noticed that the old machine, which had not worked for decades, began to turn on slowly by itself. At this moment, one of the girls, Lena, remembered that in childhood, she had heard from her grandmother about an old ritual that could calm troubled souls. She offered to spend it using candles and an old spell book found in the archive. Having no other options, the group decided to give it a try. They lit candles and began to read aloud from the book. At the last words of the spell, the factory seemed to sink into silence. Suddenly, the doors opened of their own accord. The guys ran outside without looking back. When they returned to the village, it turned out that they had been gone all night for only half an hour. No one could explain this strange phenomenon. Later, after studying the recordings from the cameras, they saw how the shadows of the